Well, it seems that the animation and direction meter go off the charts in this week's episode of Dragon Ball Super. Hey, hello there, beautiful friends from around the world. I'm your host, Blackenfist, and this is my review of this very action-packed episode. So right where we left off with Zamasu and Goku Black using that energy blade technique that Salza used, never thought that they would use a move like that again. So the confrontation between the villains and Goku is about to commence. Now of course Zamasu gives his whole spiel about how mortals are misusing the intelligence that gods gave them, and you know, we heard it before. Goku Black does give an interesting comment though. Goku Black says he really wanted to fight him in this body. Of course, this implies that whoever Goku Black is, he's pulling a Captain Ginyu, because that's obviously not his real body. Who knows, maybe he is Captain Ginyu. After the formalities are through with, what then commences is probably the best fight in the entire series. And I can say that with great confidence. There are a lot of aspects to this fight that really work out in this episode. We can start with the basics. The animation, of course, is one of the most basic and critical things to making a fight scene. And if that doesn't hold up, even if the other things are performed well, the animation can oftentimes cause everything else tumbling down. I can surely say to you that the animation was done really well, but it also goes hand in hand with another aspect that I really did enjoy in this episode, and that is the direction. The dynamic camera angles and the way that this fight was directed was almost something out of Battle of Gods and Resurrection F. Some of the panning that they did was very reminiscent of some of the shots that they did in Battle of Gods. It quite frankly surprised me, because nowhere in Super has the direction of the series been this dynamic than in this episode. Well, I mean, you could argue that there have been other moments, small moments, that have been as dynamically directed and well animated as this, but I argue that this scene, this fight, is definitely the longest continuous scene that provides this quality in this entire series. And that really is what makes it stand out in those two aspects, but there's more. I think that there's also a lot of creativity into this fight, because this is not just your standard 1 versus 1, which could get kind of stale and boring, especially at this point in Dragon Ball. What's really amazing about this fight is that there's 4 players, of course, which I think were really creatively used. At first, Goku Black and Zamasu are trying to gang up on Goku. Trunks tries to step in to relieve the pressure. Then 2 fights break out. Some guys are fighting in the air, with the choreography being pretty damn well, and then of course Trunks and Zamasu are fighting on the bottom. Creativity is something that Dragon Ball Super really needs in its fights, because when you're talking about Dragon Ball, it seems that in terms of fighting, it's almost everything else has been done, because the series is so long that it's gone through a long list of ideas. And I really do think that Dragon Ball Super is gonna have to get over the fact of 1 versus 1 fighting, because I really do think that it's holding it back, especially when we have a serious villain on the stakes. Yes, it worked in the past, but I feel that this concept is beginning to get a little stale unless there are good justifications for it to be a 1 versus 1 fight. Not to mention that Sumitomo complements the scene absolutely perfectly. So this is definitely, to me, in my opinion, the best action scene in the entire series so far. And if this becomes the new standard of Super, I don't think anyone should ever complain about technical animation issues again. However, I do know not to get my head above in the clouds, because I realize that Dragon Ball Super is a weekly running series, and there are going to be bad animation days and great ones. But during the middle of the fight, Trunks manages to stab Zamasu right in the chest, and I gotta say, that was pretty awesome. However, this is when we learn some new revelation about Zamasu, and it also confirms that the Zamasu that we see here in the future is not the same Zamasu that we see in the past, that there are 2, in fact, different Zamasus. We can call this one Future Zamasu, perhaps, because he pulls the sword directly out of his chest and then declares himself to be an immortal. Now I'm going to skip ahead to the next episode preview, because in that, we see the present Zamasu get a devilish idea of gathering the Super Dragon Balls to make a wish. Put 2 and 2 together that he's probably going to be wishing for immortality, and that is how Future Zamasu it has an immortal body. The fight here really ends off with Goku and Trunks being held in place by Zamasu while Goku Black charges up an evil Kamehameha. A Kamehameha reminiscent of the 10x Kamehameha from Dragon Ball GT. I'm pretty sure they don't have any relation, guys, so please don't try it. And thus concludes the best action scene in the entire series. Of Super, of course. But the greatness of this episode doesn't stop there, because as Zamasu and Goku Black are about to deliver the final blow, Vegeta from the shadows comes and attacks both Zamasu and Goku Black before they can do it. Honestly, it reminded me a lot of what he did at the end of the Cell arc. Of course, with Vegeta being injured, that's pretty much all he could do. Thankfully for Goku and Trunks, that was just enough of a distraction for Yajirobe to pull off something he did in the Saiyan arc. He scooped up both Goku and Trunks, saving their lives before our villains even knew what happened. Yajirobe has a tendency to really do quick and hasty things while the enemy's not paying attention. Which I really like that. I really like the fact that Yajirobe was not just introduced just as a nod to the old-time fans, and that he was actually made useful and made with a purpose once again. Even if it's just a small purpose, I like that. I like that characters like this are getting their use once again, even if it's forever so small. Now, if there's anything that I could maybe knock against this episode, is just a little tiny thing. Maybe you can call it a nitpick. With Yajirobe, of course, not being able to save Vegeta and about to be killed by Zamasu and Black Goku, Mai and her troops shoot some sort of gas. Now, this is where I really start questioning a lot of things, because, okay, maybe it's anti-godly gas, perhaps, but I really have a hard time believing that these extremely powerful beings probably could destroy who knows how much, they have magnitudes of strength, can be stopped by pepper spray. Okay, maybe it's not pepper spray, but you get my point. Regardless of that, Mai does use the gas as another distraction to save Vegeta. Now, I like that Mai's being useful, although a bit contrived, but oh well. I mean, it's not really that much of a big deal. Mai meets up with everyone else and then gets the time machine, then proceeds to send everyone back to the present. Of course, future Trunks wasn't exactly happy about that, but Mai did promise that she will stay alive. Which, honestly, from here on out, I really don't know where this arc was gonna go. I really thought that this was going to be the final battle, but they got their ass whooped. So from here, it's kind of a mystery. Although I do have an idea, I'm really glad that this arc wasn't going to be as predictable as I thought it was going to be, which is pleasant. We then go back to Universe 10 and meet up with Gowasu and Zamasu watching reruns of Dragon Ball Super on their godly television, which, by the way, I just love it, and it is very Toriyama-ish that these gods, these higher beings are watching something on a television of all things, not like a crystal ball or some magical artifact, just a television. Although it does seem that the television does have some godly properties, because it seems Zamasu can sense the energies of Goku through the television screen. That must be one hell of a television. But of course, we have another scene where Zamasu's blood starts boiling, feeling all oh so insecure that some mortal is doing better than him. Oh, Zamasu. Zamasu, I feel like, has been one of the biggest coin flips in this arc for me, for this entire arc, because at first I was really getting ticked off that he was looking like a poorly written character. Then some of his motivations were being revealed and I started to understand where he came from, and I didn't think that he was as poorly written anymore. In this episode, however, I was getting pissed off with him, but not because he was a poorly written character. It was because he was just a dick, and I think that that is good, because he's the villain. There are those villains, even though they're evil, they're just so cool and suave, and you just can't help but like them. But then there's other villains that they're just so pretentious and so up themselves, and that's Zamasu. So I think he's definitely serving that purpose, because I'm definitely having some real heat. I genuinely want to see Zamasu's face smashed in, and if the show is really making me feel that, I think the show is doing something right. But anyway guys, that's really where this episode ends off. And from then on, it seems that we're going to be looking at Zamasu wishing for immortality. And from there, who knows where it could go. But anyway, guys, if you really liked this review, if you liked my thoughts, please subscribe to the channel, as I'll be bringing you even more Dragon Ball Super reviews like this one, as well as my other Dragon Ball segments. But until next time, guys, as always, forevermore, I am Blackenfist, and I'm out.